I mean, look, what they ended up getting was Terrion Arnold when they could have had Cooper DeJean and Cooper Beebe. Like, they could have had DeJean and Beebe and Rakestraw. Now, they didn't know how it was going to play out ahead of time. Would you rather have Terrion Arnold and Enos Rakestraw or Cooper DeJean, Enos Rakestraw, and Cooper Beebe? Because that's how the board ended up playing itself out. One of the exercises and one of the reasons why we do multiple round mock drafts prior to and have you make the pick is you don't know how the board's going to play out. But is DeJean and Beebe better than Arnold? Is the combination of those two better than Arnold? Well, and it's a fair question.
It is a fair question. And not everybody's going to love what the Lions did. And that's fine. I do, because I looked at Terrion Arnold and I thought he was untouchable. I didn't think it was possible they can get him.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we always talked about my dream was moving up to take Quinyon Mitchell because I didn't think Terrion Arnold was attainable. And yet Mitchell went first. And then here's the opportunity. We'll go get him. What's a third-round pick? Okay, I don't care. Because if I told you before the draft that a third-round pick was going to get you Terrion Arnold, would you do it? If you didn't know anything, all I'm telling you.
Yeah, I would have.
Pick and 29 gets you Terrion Arnold.
And
you do it 100 times out of 100.
The other thing, too, is drafting Terrion Arnold and Enos Rakestraw could lead to winning big. Drafting Cooper DeJean and Enos Rakestraw and Cooper Beebe could also lead to winning big. There's multiple paths to getting there, and I don't want to get wrapped up. I was guilty of this in the past, but they could both work out. The double tap of the two corners, moving up for Terrion Arnold and taking Enos Rakestraw, that double tap, it doesn't guarantee that you've got a really good corner in there. But in their view, they got the two best. Now, don't be fooled. Brad Holmes, after the first-round pick, said, one of the reasons we love Terrion Arnold, because there was Terrion Arnold, then we drew a line, and it was a big drop-off to the next corner. Then later, when he took Enos Rakestraw, he said that he was our second corner in the draft. He did mention that there was quite a gap between number 1 and number 2 after the first round. So after the second round, they got the number 2 guy, but he did admit that there was a big gap between number 1 and number 2. Now, as far as, and you brought this up last hour, and we, figured we'd, have some time before we got into it, is he called it a bloodbath at corner when asked about the competition and the fact that they're going to have the 2 draft picks, Carlton Davis, Amik Robertson, Emmanuel Mosley eventually. There is a lot of competition at the corner spot. That's one. But this gets into the part that I mentioned before the break. Was it super smart? They had basically one playable corner under contract for 2025, and that's Amik Robertson. They had no corners that you would think of as starting caliber corners under contract for 2025, 26, 20, and they've got these two under club control for the next 4 or 5 years. So that's part of it. These draft picks are actually might have short-term and long-term ramifications. And kind of the same thing is true of the 2 offensive linemen. They take they take a tackle that doesn't need to play this year and get him in the system in Giovanni Manu and play him at right tackle all season long and see if he's capable of being a 4th-round pick contract to maybe move on from Taylor Decker. Yeah, not that I'm pushing Decker out the door, and he may take less money to stay here. He may go out and dominate and be your left tackle and earn another big contract. But they are seeing it as we've got a year to develop this incredibly raw guy who could be a star in this league. And he's really cheap as a 4th-round pick. Additionally, the 6th-round pick.
Well, this is the one.
I want to be careful here because when you read, I'm not going to say that Christian Mahogany was on my radar much at all. But when you start reading analysis and they describe him as like a bouncer at a college bar in the middle of your offensive line, how he gets people out, 1 sack allowed and all this incredible stuff. And I'm like, ooh. Now, I did the same thing with Logan Stenberg. I didn't know anything about him. Read the scouting reports. I'm like, ooh, I love this Logan Stenberg. Didn't make an impact. But does it feel like these are two future starters that could come on the cheap to allow them to afford all the big contracts that they're going to have to sign?
Yeah, I love the draft pick of Mahogany at the end.
Do you?
First team All ACC guy, started all 12 games. Started 12 games at right guard. He's a guard. He's not somebody that you're projecting to be there. He's a guy who is there and plays on a mean streak. Those are things you like, and the fact that he was there for them at that point, that's great. That's great. And they needed to find guys. I was getting concerned because where's the interior? Why are they going to address the interior? I thought maybe that second pick would be used for interior offensive line, but they didn't. They double tapped on the corner. I'm fine with that for a lot of the reasons that you went through. But and I frankly think that the two corners they have, they may end up by the end of the season, that could be CB1 and CB2. It could be by the end of the season. I'm kind of expecting it to be CB1 and CB2 for the 2025 season.
Yep.
So I really like what they did there. They're getting two guys, young players in there, and let them go. Now, the mistake you make is putting that kind of an expectation on people, and you certainly don't want to have a Jeff Okudah situation. But no. Terrion Arnold seems like this is a little different. Like this is, again, circumstances worked to the Lions' way when the first 14 picks in the draft went offense. You knew some defensive guys were going to slide because there were still some teams that were going to draft offense no matter what. And we're doing that draft show on Thursday night. We're like, wow, look at this. This is still working out the Lions' way. Here goes another offensive lineman. Now we're at 20, and what's going on? So things kind of fell. The Lions got some luck, I think, on Thursday night. And then what they did the rest of the draft was try to make their own luck.
I think you're right. I don't think they weren't going to let the board fall. They were trying to be proactive.
He was aggressive
in getting what they deemed the best player available, but changing the availability by moving.
I don't love trading next year's third-round pick so you get a fourth-round pick this year. I didn't love that. I'm not a fan of that strategy, but it's Brad Holmes, and Brad Holmes has earned the right where he can, not go scot-free, but at least you listen to his explanation on why, and it's hard to argue with it right now. There haven't been many Brad Holmes picks that have been complete busts. This is the fourth draft right now, and
his hit rate's pretty good.
His hit rate is so high
100%.
that and the team is in a different situation now than they were 3 years ago. 3 years ago, you needed as many draft picks as you can get, and let's try to scattershot and add depth and patch this and patch that. Right now, because of what they did in free agency, it allowed them to go ahead and do what he wants to do, which is BPA.